Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of At the Buzzer Sports, where we talk all things basketball all the time. I am your host, John Drummond. Now, today we are going to be previewing, giving my predictions, and breaking down the series of the Lakers versus Timberwolves. And I think this series is going to be very interesting just because we have two teams who are very, very separate in play styles. We have the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are tough, strong, lengthy. They hang their hats on defense, and then they have the prolific scorer in Anthony Edwards versus the offensive mastermind type of team with Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Austin Reeves, JJ Redick, a bunch of shooters, kind of like the smarter and more gifted offensive team in the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think both of these teams have clear advantages and clear pathways to win this series, and we're going to be talking about both of them. And the first thing I want to talk about is a lot of people are going to be saying Rudy Gobert may be unplayable in this series. And I think it's to a multitude of different things that you could be going to, whether it's people mismatch attacking Rudy Gobert, whether it's attacking Rudy Gobert in drop coverage, playing 5 out to make sure Rudy Gobert does not stay around the rim. And I do think there's a lot of ways you can take that away. I do think they can do a lot of pre-switching pick and rolls. I've seen a lot of things where Jaden McDaniels has guarded Jackson Hayes the last time they matched up, and they just switched everything on the perimeter. They could go Anthony Edwards on Luka Doncic and put Jaden McDaniels on Jackson Hayes, and maybe put Rudy Gobert on a LeBron James or maybe a Rui Hachimura to kind of take that advantage away or take the lob threat away. And I also think the Minnesota Timberwolves can lean into their rebounding, something they do extremely well. And the Lakers are one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. And I definitely think that the Minnesota Timberwolves should be able to control the rebounding battle because you have two really good rebounders in your front court in Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert. So I would think that one of the biggest things in this series for Chris Finch and the Minnesota Timberwolves is how do we control the possessions? How do we keep Rudy Gobert on the floor as much as possible? How do we make Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert valuable on the defensive side of the floor? That's closing out possessions. That's rebounding. That's keeping Rudy Gobert out of the perimeter. And I do think that a lot of people kind of underrate Rudy Gobert as a switch defender. I don't think he's bad. Like, I do think, especially if Luka is not Luka, I definitely think Rudy Gobert could have a better time this series than he did last year against Luka Doncic, because Luka has shown signs this season that he's still clearly hurt. And I think the matchups are going to show how much they're going to be able to be physical with an Austin Reeves, be physical with a Luka Doncic, be physical with a Jackson Hayes. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Austin Reeves and Jackson Hayes specifically deal with that physicality. I think Luka could be fine against physicality. I think Bron can be fine. I think Rui Hachimura can be fine. It's Luka Doncic and not Luka Doncic. It's Austin Reeves and Jackson Hayes, in my opinion, who's going to be the most questionable against that physicality. So the biggest checkbox for me is we're going to try and keep Rudy Gobert around the paint, whether, once again, that's switching the pick and roll every single time and having guys rotate on the back line or rotate on the weak side, or we're going to try and close out as much. We're going to try and box out as much to get as much rebounds as possible, limiting the most amount of possessions that we can for this Los Angeles Lakers team. And that's where it gets tricky, because I don't necessarily think that the Lakers have the rollers that Dallas had. I mean, you had rollers like Derrick Jones Jr., Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford on that Dallas team, but I definitely don't think that Dallas has the shooters that the Lakers have. I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith is a great catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. LeBron has gotten a lot better as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura. There's guys that's going to be able to come in and hit shots. I think Gabe Vincent, if he can play at the level that he's been playing at as of recently, can be a really good catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. So if you're going to play Rudy Gobert in a drop, he definitely can take away the lob, but how much are we going to be able to trust the Timberwolves to make rotations? And I'm talking about guys like Mike Conley and Julius Randle. How are they going to be able to make rotations? And ultimately, I would say the matchups would probably be Rudy Gobert on Jackson Hayes. You put Mike Conley on Austin Reeves. You put Julius Randle on LeBron. You put Ant on Hachimura, and you probably put Jaden McDaniels on Luka. And with that being said, I just think there's so much that the Timberwolves are going to have to worry about against this Lakers team, because you have so much dynamic playmakers with Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Austin Reeves being one of the best connective third options in the NBA as a passer, scorer, and off-ball scorer. So it's going to be so much that you're going to have to hide. You're going to have to hide Rudy Gobert out in space. You're going to have to hide him as a drop coverage defender. Well, not necessarily hide him as a drop coverage defender, but you don't want him to play a deep drop because Luka is such a good pull-up three-point shooter. And then there's the Mike Conley matchup. How long will Mike Conley be able to play in this series? And I think that's something that's very, very underrated, because Mike Conley is going to be on the floor at 6'1", probably being attacked by Luka Doncic, LeBron James as much as possible. If I'm JJ Redick and I'm like, we're going to get Mike Conley off the floor, because not only does that help our offense, just attacking him as much as possible, it also helps our defense, because Mike Conley has been somebody that's been able to manufacture looks for Rudy Gobert. Mike Conley's also been their best playmaker. If you take Mike Conley out of the game, that changes a lot for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think it comes down to how well of a passer can Ant be and how well of a passer Julius Randle can be. Because when you look at the Los Angeles Lakers team, they're not letting anybody go 1v1. Whoever ends up guarding Ant is not going to be playing Ant 1v1. The Lakers are going to plug up driving lanes. They're going to be sitting at the nail, and they're going to disrupt any type of driving motion that you send. We saw it against SGA, where they were literally shutting off driving lanes and making SGA pull out and beat them as a mid-range shooter. I don't think Ant can do that. That's a 37% mid-range shooter. If Ant is playing the in-between game, you live with that. Now, I kind of alluded to a few things when I said if I was the Lakers. If I'm the Lakers, I'm attacking Mike Conley every single opportunity I can. I'm taking LeBron, I'm taking Luka, I'm taking AR. We are going to try and play Mike Conley off the floor as much as we possibly can, and we're going to send multiple bodies at Anthony Edwards. And we're going to test him very early on to see if he can make those reads. If he can make those reads consistently out of being blitzed, out of playing in traffic in the in-between game, getting downhill, he's not going to see 1v1 coverage much in this series at all. And it's really going to be up to the Lakers' speed and rotation to really get closeouts on shooters, whether it's Julius Randle from three, Mike Conley, Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid. It's going to be up to them to make rotations. It's going to be up to them to force Anthony Edwards to get some really bad looks. I don't know if you guys saw the game against the Milwaukee Bucks earlier this year, where not earlier this year, this was like a week ago, where the Minnesota Timberwolves had like a 20 to 25 point lead and they blew it. And it was because the Bucks went to zone. And this is something that I want to emphasize in this series as much as we possibly can. Make Anthony Edwards play in traffic. That means swarming him. That means having guys as the low men ready to help, helping off, giving space to Jaden McDaniels as much as possible in the corner, having a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo be hugged on to a guy like Mike Conley just because he is a 40+% three-point shooter. And if we take a look, Anthony Edwards playing in traffic, he can lose the ball, he can make bad reads, things like this happen. The Minnesota Timberwolves in this fourth quarter logged 8 turnovers against the zone. This is not a team that can necessarily make the right decision multiple time after multiple time after multiple time, and that's something I think the Lakers can exploit. Here's another possession where I think the Minnesota Timberwolves really struggle in zone. We're going to see the Bucks are clearly in a zone here. This is what the Lakers do really good. They swarm the ball. They send a lot of help to the strong side. They make players play in traffic. Guys like Dante DiVincenzo, guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, guys like Anthony Edwards. Those guys are going to have to make decisions. And if these guys are going to be having rough possessions like this, where they're just losing the ball constantly and giving up the ball, the Lakers are going to be able to capitalize off of that, because they're one of the best transition teams in basketball. And then that gets me to the small ball lineup, where they're going to be doing this a lot more, where they're going to have Luka, AR, LeBron, Rui Hachimura, and Dorian Finney-Smith on the floor at all times. And you can really space out the floor there. I don't know who Rudy Gobert is going to be able to play off of. I don't know how he's going to be able to close out from three and also protect the rim when you have 2 A+ playmakers and a really good playmaker in Austin Reeves. And that's what my decision would be in this series. I think with Mike Conley being their best playmaker on the floor, just being a really valuable connective passer and just a really good playmaker that can set up their most offensively limited player in Rudy Gobert, you're going to attack him. I think one of JJ Redick's pinpoints in this series is to be get Mike Conley off the floor. Because even if their defense improves with Mike Conley being off the floor and swapping that with a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker or maybe even a Dante DiVincenzo, their offense gets significantly worse because now you're banking on Anthony Edwards to be able to make these reads consistently. And although he has gotten better, I don't think he's been consistent enough to say that he can beat the Lakers as a playmaker. And that's where I say, once again, when I've been going through all of these playoff predictions, which team has the bigger deficiency that the other team can attack better than the opposing team? And I just think the Minnesota Timberwolves are extremely limited when it comes to playmaking, and with how the Lakers play, they're going to force Anthony Edwards to get rid of the ball. They're going to plug up those driving lanes, and they're going to make it extremely hard for Ant to get to the rim consistently without making plays to guys like Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, Naz Reid. He's going to be tested as a playmaker probably as much as he's ever been in the postseason. And that leads me to another point where I just don't know how much the Timberwolves are going to be closing games good enough for them to win this series. You have a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves who've been struggling in clutch games all season, and then you're going up against one of the best closers in LeBron James and Luka Doncic. I trust a Luka Doncic and LeBron-led offense more than a Timberwolves clutch offense that's been struggling all season. So I do think the Timberwolves can gain an advantage, and I also want to talk about some of their lineups that they can play with Naz Reid and Julius Randle and how that offense can match the Lakers, because if you're putting out a lineup with Dante, Ant, Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and Jaden McDaniels, you do get a lot of shooting in Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and Anthony Edwards. But then again, the playmaking gap is substantial. So you're going to be sending a lot of bodies at Ant, Julius Randle, to where if these guys can make those shots consistently, I don't necessarily know how much the Lakers can be able to prevent that, because they're going to have to rotate. They're going to have to be quick. And the Lakers are also going to help off of Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels is going to have to beat them as a shooter. We've seen all season the Lakers have picked one guy in every 5 that's on the floor and like, okay, if he beats us, pat him on the back, we'll adjust next game. And I just think it's a lot for Jaden McDaniels to try and cover as a three-point shooter. I think it's going to be a lot you're going to be asking for from Ant or Julius Randle as playmakers to constantly generate good offense against a team that's going to be generating good offense no matter who's on the floor. So that's why I would ultimately pick the Lakers in probably 6 games. When I first looked at this series, I'm like, okay, the Lakers are going to win this game and win this series in 5 games. But I definitely do think that the Timberwolves could, in a couple of games, limit as much possessions for the Lakers as rebounders. I do think that there's going to be a couple of games where the Timberwolves are just extremely aggressive and extremely physical with the Lakers, and that could throw them off their offensive game. But if you're telling me coming down the wire and coming down to the stretch where Anthony Edwards is going to have to be a flawless playmaker like we can trust with Luka Doncic and LeBron James, I just don't think he can do that consistently for a 7-game series. So, ladies and gentlemen, that has been my pick for the Lakers and Timberwolves series. I'm going to go with the Lakers in 6 games, moving on to the second round. And if you guys like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm very excited for the playoffs. The playoffs are just a few days away, and I think we're going to get some really good series. From here on out, you guys are going to get the Houston Rockets versus Golden State Warriors series predictions from me, and you're going to be getting the Clippers and Nuggets series predictions from me as well. Also, don't quote me. I may be going live after a few games. I'm probably going to go live on Saturday night. Don't know for sure yet, but if you guys want to tune into that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And with all that being said, I will see you guys next time. Peace.